Hello, my name is Max Hardy, and I just finished making another melted fudgesicle. So the idea here was I had made some other fudgesicles that lay flat, and I just had some pieces that were pretty small left over, and I didn't know what to do with them, and I kind of thought of doing it this way. So I made two of these. The other one's curing, but the process is really pretty much the same, but it was a nice way to use the little scraps that I had left over and, get something cool out of them. But it's made out of two pieces. The milk piece and the fudgesicle part are both walnut, and then I inlay it into the other piece and then have a nice little maple stick that I put in there. But all in all, I thought it turned out really cool. It was a really fun project and a good way to use a pretty small amount of material to make something cool. But I filmed it all in time lapse, so if you'd like to see how I did it, keep watching. To get started, I ripped this piece of scrap walnut down where I can cut it into two little pieces, which would be, two fudgesicles, and then I used the chop saw to kind of give it a slight taper. One of them I make straight up and down, and one of them's a little more leaning to the side. Um, then I take my square here and I just kind of draw my lines where I'm gonna chisel out. I'm just eyeballing it. I'm not really actually measuring anything. But here I just cut my vertical lines first with my knife and then chisel out all the material. I try to go relatively deep because I can always remove material later, and then I kind of lay my chisel on a 45-degree angle and try to create like a chamfer around the edge to kind of soften the edge. Then with my sander attachment, I really round over the super hard edges and smooth it up a little bit. And then I just take sandpaper by hand to smooth it up the rest of the way, round it as much as possible. It's real hard to get in those little crevices. And once I have the final dimensions down there, I transfer that onto the melt piece, just tracing it on there. And then I chisel it all out. I start with a rectangle and then make the curves. And once I get it down in there real far, it goes down in there like more than a quarter of an inch. I write out this channel with my gouge. And this just kind of gets it started where I have a good idea where things are going to start to taper. And then I just really go to town, really using that gouge to remove a ton of material. This was a pretty fun process, really. It's funny when you try to chisel out a square piece of wood, sometimes the grains just don't work out, and in some places they just really fight it and they don't want to come out of there at all. Wood just has a certain way that it wants to be carved. And then once I'm pretty happy with the overall dimensions of it and the kind of tiered layers that I created, I just take the sander to it. I've just got 80 grit sandpaper here. I don't want to remove too much material, but I want it to smooth up a little bit. This little orbital sander works real good. And I start to round it over a little bit here, but I leave it relatively square. And then I cut out a little popsicle stick out of maple, just round it over by hand. I make it as wide as my chisel, smooth it up a little bit. And then I'll transfer this line onto the fudgesicle itself. And the reason I make it the same width as the chisel is because right here, then if it's too small, then I can't chisel it out properly. But this fought me the whole time. It really didn't want to go down into that end grain. Then here I just take a dowel with some sandpaper and I start to make a little more interest in the melted part, where instead of it being so square, I just kind of try to dig into it a little bit, make it look a little more melty. I glue it in place and clamp it up and let it dry. And then I just start to fill the gaps with glue, get it all wet and sand it. I do this on pretty much all my woodworking projects, just to fill those gaps. Works out pretty nice. And then it's ready for polyurethane. So this is, I used semi-gloss polyurethane for this, just because that's what I had on hand. But really looks nice. I think it turned out really great. I'm super happy with it. So after it's all cured up, all that's left to do is glue in the stick. Just glue it in there with a little bit of super glue. Turns out awesome. Boom, there she is, looking great. For the other coats of polyurethane, I really slathered them on to make them extra goopy and melty. I really like it. I think it turned out great. Thanks for watching.